Hey, class. This is Dr. G. It is whatever day you're watching this. I don't know what semester, but right now it's Halloween. And so I am Frog. I'm Kermit the Frog. Hey, everybody. It's my worst, not good impression, but I tried. So, okay. This is, if you're wondering why I have a DIY frog outfit on, that's why. So I like to dress up for Halloween. I think it's fun, and that's what we're doing. Okay, so today is this is chapter 10. I believe. I'll be honest, I don't totally remember the chapter, but it's on career development. This is for Management 345, and it's this part of HR that deals with how do you develop your employees. That said, I'm going to take a little bit different tack than the textbook takes and focus on the individual, how you can lift your career journey off the ground, hence the hot air balloons and your journeying and adventuring and so forth. I have been interested in this topic for a long time. I have published in some world renowned outlets my thinking and my colleagues' thinking on what careers mean. And I'm going to share a bit of that with you. And this also ties into your project too, the hands-on application part of this, the skills part, skills development part. And so probably ought to pay attention to this one for sure. Okay, so I want to start us off with just thinking, the voice in my head said I probably ought to mention what are some of the things I look at, like how did I get into this area of researching this stuff. Mainly because my MO for my career was literally life is an adventure. If you remember my intro video, in Japanese it's Jinsei wa boukenda, which means life's an adventure. And that's pretty much how I lived my life and still kind of do. But like in my late teens, early 20s, college age, even into my 20s and like 30s, it was basically life's an adventure. And like, let's go. And that's how I pretty much lived. And it was awesome and fun. And lots of growing and lots of learning. I didn't necessarily have a plan. I didn't really have much of a plan to speak of. And so this idea of careers just sort of interested me when I got into a PhD program and started to ask myself, what the hell did I get myself into? It was that moment of dread and regret where I was like, oh my gosh, my adventure took a dark turn. And that's what got me interested in careers, is I thought, man, who am I? What am I doing? I don't want my life to be wasted. I want to live a meaningful life. And I just started thinking, like, what are my values? What are the virtues? Like, what are things that are really important to me? And that's sort of how I got into this. Was thinking about like career regrets, and then what's this whole idea of striving for a career? And then I also think like the whole idea of careers is kind of a dirty word sometimes. Anymore, it's not, but like to some people and in part of my life, it can be used that way, like a careerist, like someone who's self-focused and only interested in themselves and their success. Um, that um, that also interested me. That I thought, well, like that's not the kind of life journey that I want to have. I want to know that I lived a life in accordance to my deep values and a life that's pleasing in the sense of my spiritual beliefs. And anyway, so all of these things really got me interested in it. The non-academic version is that I'm interested in careers because I'm interested in people, and most of our lives in our 21st century lives are lived in the context of a career. So college, you're preparing for a career, then you launch the thing, and then you retire, and so like almost the entirety of our adult lives is in this framing of careers. And so that's why I think it's really important for to understand, like, well, how can I help people live more meaningful lives, um, and reach the goals that they want. So there you go. That's the what, 5 minutes, 5 minutes exactly, 5 minute background of how I got into this, and what I hope you get out of it is understanding some of those questions that I just brought up for you, or at least to get you start thinking about that. So if I were teaching this in person, I would start. What career advice have you received? And I hear lots of different things from people. Was it good or bad advice, or you're just not sure yet? And the discussions will inevitably center on like it's total array, just a whole mishmash of different platitudes. Generally, like if you do what you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. And it's like, okay, well, let's break that down. So if you focus entirely on just find something that you like doing, and you don't have to worry about anything else. It's kind of what that career approach is saying. And then I'm going to show you how that's horseshit later on in this this here in this presentation. What are some other things? Well, there's all kinds of different things, and most of the advice you receive, albeit it's well intentioned, it's oftentimes so contextual. It's so situation specific, even person specific, that it's not really typically that helpful. And what I mean by that is someone who experienced their career, everyone has such a different journey in their careers that, like, what worked for one person maybe isn't going to work for anybody else but them. And so it's a messy ride, basically. And so anyway, so that's kind of where the discussion would lead if we did this in an in-person class. Is this it's so messy, and it's so individual, case by case. It's really hard to know, like, how can a person it's how can we have any kind of clarity of, like, how to have a happy, successful life. Successful in big ribbit frog air quotes, because it's how you want to define success. It could be making a lot of money. It could be having a big family. It could be, I just want to live quietly and sip on Lipton tea and be with Miss Piggy the rest of my life. Whatever it is. Kermit, that's why. So let's see. There was another thing I wanted to bring up. Oh yeah, here's another thing that I'm giving you just sort of like bullet points of the research. Is one thing that's been clear to me interviewing literal former rock stars and Hollywood, famous Hollywood people, and artists and writers. These people who are famous, I to keep confidentiality. I know it sounds like a cop out, but it's not. It's all these people that maybe on the surface you see the results and you think, man, they had it good. Man, they got lucky, or wow, they're just so talented. And you might think, like, well, that doesn't apply to me. The one thing, even though everyone's on this kind of case by case individual journey, the one thing that's become very, very clear to me is that nobody gets a free pass. That by the sweat of your brow, like, everyone works. And I don't think that there's, even people who've, like, made it big in their careers, you hear when you get to know them and you start asking them about their career journeys, you find out, oh wow, like, it was a slog. And we only see the fruits, like their efforts blooming in fruition, but you don't see all the roots that are down in the dirt that had to struggle and take root before the flower could bloom. So anyway, that is something I think is very important to know. And hopefully, in this presentation, I remember to bring that up again because the whole root of the word passion, follow your passion, is if you start to look at it etymologically, where the original word passion comes from, it starts to take on a deeper and different meaning. Okay, last thing we might talk about in the class is what do you think is the key to having a happy and or lucrative career? It's cool to hear the different students' insights on that. Okay, so here's the things you need to know. If you're like, shut up already, stop philosophizing, you doctor of philosophy, and just give it to me straight. What do I need to know for the exam? Fine, I will indulge you before I start to philosophize again. Okay, no wonder his videos are too long. Okay, so what are careers like? Well, okay, first you need to define what a career is. It's just I like to think of it as a journey. It's a pattern of work experiences that a person has over their working lifetime. Some might argue that a career is also like post-retirement. You could make that case, but generally, I like to think of it as it's just it's your resume. It's the journey that you took as as recorded on your resume. Okay. It used to be in the well, I was going to say the bad old days. The It used to be in man, how much do I go into here? Basically, post-industrial revolution, we had the development of this wage labor system. So you come to work, you clock in, and you get paid a wage for it. There were lots of, I say battle days because there's a lot of things that went awry in society. With that, we could argue this whole ideal worker norm, but that's a conversation for another day. As this relates to you, so it used to be that careers were structured very hierarchically. So you come in, you work, and you move on up in the company. So it's happening within the company, and success was defined by higher pay, higher status. So, oh, you're a vice president. Wow, I'm only a director or something like that. And you had like the think like 1950s, 1960s kind of corporate America. It's sort of like that. 1980s stuff. That's so we call that the career ladder. It used to be careers were seen as a ladder. That you have the ladder is an organization, a company, and you work your way up the ladder on the company. Okay, that started to change in the 80s. Um, China opening up, the Reagan era, the Soviet Union collapsing, and then just a lot of globalization, and then also robots and automation. That tended to make things more competitive, and so companies were like, we can't offer these lifetime pensions and these lifetime employment to our employees anymore. We're gonna have to like start cutting jobs and essentially pull the rug out from under workers. And well, so this traditional system, if employees were like, I'm going to work for this company till the day I die, it's like, well, you might want to think twice about that because the company's not going to have any loyalty to you. I'm not saying that companies are these evil, cigar smoking, bourbon sipping, whatever. Like that's not fat cats. There's are entrepreneurs too. These are small businesses too that just are facing increased competition, and this whole contract at a more macro level scale started to change to where employers couldn't quite offer that. And so there also is an exploitative component to that. But again, that's for another day, another class, maybe a graduate class of this. How it's important to you is that led to internet, things becoming more, information becoming less asymmetrical. In other words, employees can now be like, hey, I can apply to a job online. That means geography doesn't matter as much. It's not just the newspaper clippings or my in-network. I can just send my resume upload it as a Word document file and apply to this job. Okay, so that gave rise in the early 2000s to this idea. 2006 is really when it was kind of named. Really 1996. Anyway, Protean Career is what you should know. So Protean Career is this new type of career that is in the current paradigm. And it comes from, do I have a picture? No, I don't. Okay. It comes from the Greek god Proteus, who could change shapes with the environment. So that's the idea behind a Protean career, is that no longer are careers as one ladder that you work for one organization your entire life and you move on up the ladder. It's this kind of zigzag of, um, I'm going to take control of my career. I'm going to lead this journey. I'm in charge. I'm going to direct it. I'm going to be more boundaryless. Um, I'm gonna not just work for one company. I'm gonna work for lots of different ones, and I'm gonna live a life that's true to a career that's true to my values. Okay, that's the Protean career. Really, it's Protean career with the boundaryless mindset, boundaryless career concepts. But we're gonna blend those together and just call that the Protean career. So, in other words, Protean career is the current career model. How people experience their career journeys, not as a single straight road, but kind of a windy, curvy road that goes across different companies, maybe different industries, and it's guided by the employee versus the career ladder. The employer was in charge of choosing who gets to move on up the ladder. Okay. A quick caveat is this doesn't mean, even though we're in the age of the Protean career, that doesn't mean all companies, all industries are like this. Certainly that's not the case. Anyone who works for the military, for example, knows that it's still a bit of a career ladder. Um, Public service, you work for the federal government, it's still career ladder-y. But as a whole, on average, typically as a macro structure, careers are more Protean today. Okay, so this is a nice little diagram to summarize this whole idea. The Protean career is led by the person versus a traditional career is led by the organization. Protean career emphasizes freedom, growth, self, like what does success mean? In a Protean career, often it's I live a life that's true to who my values and I've grown. That wasn't the case for a traditional career. So it was no like a success was societally seen, socially seen as, well, what's your job position? Are you VP? Are you chief whatever officer? Power and pay were seen as the marks of success. Mobility is very high in a Protean career. In other words, there you can move. It's not weird to work for several firms. That wouldn't be seen as like a bad mark on your resume. But think traditional career, it's like, wow, this person's worked for 3 different employers the last 20 years. Are they reliable? Are they going to stick with us? That's not the case anymore. Let's see. Psychological success are the, yeah, okay. I basically summarized it for you. So this is a nice thing to know, just to kind of get a feel for what the ethos of Protean versus traditional career is. Okay, yep, I already talked about this. Yeah, so career success today is about psychological success. How do you define success? And we call it a career path, or I think career journey is cooler, so we'll call it a career journey. I've tried to include that in my writing. Oftentimes, though, in academic writing, if you're too creative, the nerds who are reviewing your paper are like, no, you have to call it something else. It's like, well, fine, so career path. Anyway, all right, so that's what that is. How can an organization, how can a company help employees develop in this path? And if you're wondering, well, Dr. G, didn't you just say that employee career development in the age of Protean careers is self-directed? It's you each person should lead it, or they're leading it. What role does an employer have? Well, that's a conceptual thing, and although it's generally true, it's not true in all cases all the time and in all places. It's just generally that's the case. But employers haven't like washed their hands of developing their employees. There's still lots of things they can do and arguably ought to do, particularly if those employers are internal orientation business HR strategies. So your loyal soldier, and your committed expert. You want to develop your employees because you're hoping that they, like, if you don't develop them now, these are your future leaders. We've got to develop them now because we want them to stay with us as long as possible. So we're willing to put in that investment, particularly for committed expert, because they're also, sorry, I should do it this way for you because it's reversed. So in this, if you have the 4 HR strategies, it's this one. It's committed expert because they're also a differentiation strategy, meaning they want to, like, developing their employees is strategically important. It's important for their business strategy of innovating and having differentiating from competitors. Okay. That said, so there are about 4 categories of things that employers can do to develop their employees. First is formal education. Next is provide assessments and feedback. 3, give them interesting or developmental work experiences. And 4, develop relationships, so like mentoring, things like that. Let's go. Oh, I guess I don't. I made a short version of this for you, so I'll just give you the quick bullet points of this. So formal education is, well, it's what it sounds like. So hey, we're gonna support you getting an MBA. So this is an employer going to an employee saying, hey, we want you to get an MBA because we think you are set for our leadership track. So we're going to pay for your MBA. And oftentimes there's a contingency that, like, which you have to stick around for 4 years or 2 years after your MBA, something like that. Or they just say, hey, we want you to get an AI certification in AI, business analysis, something like that. Or, hey, you're an HR person. We want you to get your SHRMs, certified professional, or senior certified professional, SCP certification. Okay, that's what that is. Assessment and feedback, these are things like what the next slide is about to show you. Hey, we want to give people the Clifton Strengths Finder. Like, we want you to be able to know what your personal strengths are, what's your communication style, and how you can interact with your fellow employees in a more effective way. Or, hey, we want to give you a personality assessment. Lot of for the more entrepreneurial minded in this HR sphere, this is where a lot of the business happens. So, Gallup has stuff. Your consulting firms will have things. There's a lot of bullcrap ones too, though. Like, well, I don't want to call any particular vendor out, but like, there's some things out there that are I'm surprised that companies pay for them, but they do, and they're not like scientifically validated. They're kind of nonsense. You might as well just give your employees, like, which Harry Potter house are you, in my opinion. So, but these are the types of things, like, hey, what are your interests, what's your personality, that develop you as a person. Okay, work experiences. This would be providing you, hey, we want to give you like cross-functional work experience. So we want, or like an expatriate assignment. Hey, we're going to send you to our Shanghai office because we see a lot of potential for you, or your Tokyo office, or our office in I don't know, the UK, something like that. To give expatriate assignments is a way to give, like, interesting work experiences, developmental work experiences to employees that help them see the bigger picture of the business, and hopefully kind of embed them in the company as well. There's a reciprocity thing here too. Okay, but that's what we mean by offering developmental work experiences. Development relationships, I already mentioned this, is like mentors, giving mentorship. So what mentorship is taking a less senior employee and saying, hey, we want to connect you to someone who's been in the company longer, and we think would be a good match for you to, like, kind of teach you, like, hey, here's how to succeed, or here's some tips on how to navigate the industry, or navigate the company, or just navigate one's career broadly. Okay, that's what we mean by developmental relationships. Okay, so there's some examples for you. Let's go into a little more detail on at least one of these, or a couple of these. This is on assessments and feedback. So the Holland typology is a good assessment. This is a scientifically backed assessment, and You can pretty much do it for free. I know companies charge for it, but anyway, because it was developed in the academic literature, well, anyway, that's not the main point. Holland typology is really just trying to get people to have better PJ fit, person job fit. If you remember that term from, I think, chapter 4 or 5. In other words, one way that people might not fit in with their jobs and therefore not like their jobs is if they're in a job that just doesn't mesh with their interests. The Holland typology helps people find occupations or groups of jobs that fit their natural interests. And it's broken down by RIASEC, RIASEC. For the exam, you would need to identify, if I read one, if the exam said people who enjoy jobs as mechanics, electricians, and farmers are people who, and people who like mechanical and athletic abilities and like to work outdoors would be said to have which area of occupational interest? A, realistic. Yep, that's the one. Okay, and then that would be an example of a test question. You just need to be aware that this is a good way to typologize or categorize different interests that people naturally have in occupations. You also should know that in ONET, it groups jobs with these codes. Okay, so I'm gonna pause it real quick because I wanna boot that up for you super fast. And we're live again. Okay, so if you go to onetonline.org, again, this used to be called Bureau of Labor Statistics. Anyway, I think the recent administration named it something else. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But you want to go here. I want to be a start the career you've dreamed of. Do the ONET interest profiler. I highly recommend each of you do this. Carpe diem, seize the day. Now is the day for you to prepare. If you think, oh, I'm going to figure out what I like to do later when I don't know, like after I get my job, like that's foolishness. You should look into this now. So in the seated class, like we will actually go through this together. I know that's hard to do as with an online class, but I really, really recommend, I implore you, I exhort you to look into this. Go to onetinterestprofiler.org and get started. And what you're going to do is you're going to answer, do you strongly, oh wow, they've changed it to be a little more cutesy. Okay. Gen Z, am I right? No, I know. Anyway. It didn't used to be this cutesy, but all right, whatever. I guess they're improving the UX. Build kitchen cabinets. Do you strongly dislike, unsure, like, or strongly like? Okay, so I don't know. I'm only going to do a couple of these. I'll pause it, and then I'll show you what the result is at the end. Like, yeah, I think it'd be okay. Whatever. Develop a new medicine. That sounds dope. Write books or plays. Yeah, that'd be cool. Help people with personal emotional problems. Yeah, I like that. Manage department. Ugh, gross. No. Install. Oh, that's awful to me. Okay, so repair household appliances. Not really. All right, I'm going to pause it, and then I'll blast through to show you what the results are. I want you to go ahead and do this, though. All right, so after you answer all, wow, it's so interesting. They've really changed this, and I get it. It looks cooler. I kind of like the old version, but anyway, I guess I'm old and old-fashioned. The cool thing about this is every time I take this, it's very reliable. Like this is what I get every time. So they're slightly different. Artistic sometimes a little higher than at other times, but my interest profile is IAS. Oh, hey, what is IAS? Well, it comes from the freaking RIASEC, what I was telling you, Holland's typology. Okay, realistic, investigative, artistic, social, I think enterprising, and conventional. I gotta double check that it's enterprising. Where is it? Oh, it's because that's enterprising. Yeah, okay, cool. So, what, click an interest to learn more. All right, so you can do that, but let's We'll even tell you what is RIASEC. Yep. Okay, so yeah, this is pretty good. So it's your vocational interest model based on John Holland's theory. Yep. So um, it helps you just know like what are your natural interests, and then that way you can find jobs that like relate to those. Interesting. Well, I think it's interesting is that mine. Well, anyway, I don't need to get into that. You should do that and find what yours are because then the next thing you could do is hit careers matching your profile. Yay. Okay. So things you should look for that you're probably going to be interested in are the fit. In other words, this is so what the Bureau of Labor Statistics has done is taken these kind of broad job categories and profiled them according to or rated them according to how much of each of these of the RIASEC they score on. It's like a music profiler, or I'm sorry, a music therapist is someone that's going to have like it's going to have a high investigative, artistic, and social score. Social because the therapist aspect, um, investigative also because of the therapist aspect, I'm guessing, and then artistic, well, because of the music aspect. So other things you should look at are um, bright outlook. The bright outlook means is there likely do we predict there's going to be high job demand for this in the future? Probably don't want to go into something that's below average outlook. That means the labor market for that is shrinking. Bright outlooks, sunshiny days mean the job market, the demand for that is growing and is predicted to continue to grow. Average outlook is just like it's probably just going to be steady. Okay, so if that's important to you, then you should think about that. If so, it's just a trade-off of risks and rewards. So if you're like, I don't care, below average outlook, I want to be a drama teacher and a drama professor. You know, the outlook be damned. I'm going to do it. It's like, okay, that's your choice. Just you should be aware that those are the risks moving forward. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you know that like that's the gamble. All right. On your journey. I just want your journey is your journey. I just want you to be informed about your journey. Okay. Other thing you should look at because money is important because money is how our current consumer well, we'll go into that. That's how our current society operates is money's fungible. You can turn it into the things that you want. You could donate it to an orphanage, you could donate to your church, whatever it is, or you could just spend it on, I don't know, little hand knit sweaters for your puppies or something. All right. But money is important because we get to use it for things that we want. Okay. So probably important. So you should probably look at that. Okay. If you're going to look at this and be like, well, I want one that pays a lot of money, but also has a bright outlook. Well, damn. Well, I'm not looking out. My profile of IAS, unfortunately, just luck of the draw is not working out that great. So, bright outlook pays okay, good fit. So, I mean, if that's the case, I might just be like, well, okay, I'll make a little less money, but the outlook is good for the jobs and it fits me well. Yeah, okay. Then you can open that up and kind of look. Wow, like, well, how does, so here's my profile. I'm a little more enterprising than other people that might be in this job. Well, anyway, that's a one thing I would kind of the next step after this would be if there's jobs that like fit okay, like maybe you're okay to have a 2 fit, or even a 1 fit if it means more money. Like that's okay to do, and you should explore that. Which really that's the gist of Project 2. That's essentially what you're doing. Okay, but other things you should look at are job zone. So job zone is like how much education is needed for this, how much preparation is needed for this, how difficult is it. Okay, so that also is an important consideration. How much schooling or how much dedication can you stomach for this thing? Some typical things of what the job looks like, some descriptions of it might be pretty interesting. And then you can literally click here and be like, find jobs for me. Let's find those jobs. Cool. My next move, you can actually look for different jobs that fit this job uh, category. Okay, you get a full career report. Um, and there's so many freaking cool things you can do with this. So I would highly recommend you check it out and help map out your career journey. So that's that. Let's move back to where the heck is it? Here. Let's move back to this fella. Okay. Okay, that's the RIASEC. So companies could offer this for you, or you could just do the free version right there on the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is probably just as good or better than what a paid version would get you anyway. Let's see. The world of work is a kind of taking this idea of occupational interests and making it more fine, more detailed, and a little more well, it adds a nice perspective. So like it has this working with people versus working with things, working with data versus working with ideas. I like this because it provides a matrix of how the interests themselves are categorized, which was what I was getting at earlier when I was noting how um, my RIASEC score was like IAS, and they kind of clumped together in the bottom right corner. I think that that's kind of neat because it makes sense why my interests are in that category because those things, the categories themselves, are kind of correlated with each other. So this provides a nice way to categorize that. Are you more of an ideas person or a data person? An object, like a physical thing person? Are you a people person or I'm sorry, people person or things person? My bad. Versus an ideas versus data person. Um, I just think that that's a pretty interesting thing for you to do. You can do a free assessment, openpsychometrics.org/test/RIASEC for more information on this. Okay, cool. Next, other things companies can do in terms of developing employees. So we've talked about formal education, which we get, uh, assessments and feedback, and then work experiences. This is on work experiences. So some things that companies can do is provide international. Oh my gosh, is this working? Oh, it is working. Okay, they can provide international assignments. So, like I said before, an expat or expatriate, you should know that term. It's my freaking goodness. I'm sorry. Um, oof. Okay, I'm being recruited. Different colleague from a university is asking me to apply to a job there. So, all right, focus. All right, here we go. You should know the term expat, expatriate. So, it's someone who goes on assignment in another country. This comes from pater, I believe. Ex out of, so out of the, maybe it isn't pater, but it's you're leaving like your homeland, like patriot, like you're leaving your homeland to go work in another place. Expats for short. One thing that's interesting is although there's a lot of benefits to a company to send people on international assignments, and there's a lot of benefits to the individual, you, the person, to go on an international assignment. Being a former expat myself, like it's awesome. I love it. I mean, it depends on the person, right? If you're not interested in people and other cultures and things, probably not a good move. But which we'll talk about in the next slide with culture shock and things. Um, but if you're interested in that stuff, it's an amazing experience. That said, the turnover rate's pretty high because companies still are working on, like the research has figured out why, a couple of the reasons why that is, but companies tend to be a little slow on the uptake. The research tends to take a while. Honestly, because usually it's professors teaching the students, the next generation of people, about the research. And so this isn't really going to take effect until you become the managers who know that like turnover rates of expats can be pretty high, but I know why. Okay, so um, one of the main things I already mentioned, I spoiled it for you, but one of the main reasons that turnover rate of expats is so high is because companies usually send people who are like their glowing stars, like really good performers in the home country. They're like, we're going to reward you by sending you on assignment to Tokyo. All right, but the things that make someone a really good performer here aren't necessarily the same things that are going to make them a great performer elsewhere. So this idea of like cultural intelligence that you need, well, you need people high in openness to experience, using the big five personality traits. Someone high in openness to experience would be a good candidate for sending to on an expatriate assignment. Just because people who are higher in openness to experience tend to adapt a little more easily. Okay. Um, the common thing is like if a person lower on openness to experience goes to a different country and they're like, man, it's so stupid. The stupid is like a word that's used a lot. Like, man, it's so stupid here. The people are stupid, or like how the way they do things is stupid. Someone with a little higher cultural intelligence, usually higher openness to experience, is going to realize, oh, they're not going to think of it as like that's dumb. They're going to be like, huh, that's different, and they might even be open minded enough to be like, that might not work in the U.S., but that works here, and I understand why. Like that's a cool idea. That's a really neat thing. And so, yeah, that's one reason that the turnover rate for expats is so high is companies have historically not done the best job of screening people who are going to be the most successful there. Other reasons are this idea of like cultural intelligence, preparing people for this. One of the things that they should stress in kind of pre-departure, letting employees who are going to be expats know is, hey, we want to sit you down and like give you a kind of like a RJP, realistic job preview from chapter 4, or is it chapter 5? Anyway, letting people know like here's the reality. It's gonna be a shock. Almost everyone goes through this thing called culture shock. You should know that term. Culture shock is, and many of you who have traveled abroad will know exactly what I'm talking about. When you go over there and you're just kind of like, whoa, like this is, people live like this? Like this is different, like, wow, they drive on the left side of the road, or, oh man, they eat beans with everything, or like just different food, different customs, different religious perspectives, different architecture, different mannerisms, different customs, like things that are rude versus in maybe your home culture that aren't rude there. So, for instance, waiting in line for a bus, Americans tend to we like our personal space. You go to other places that maybe don't have as much land, where the people are kind of crammed together simply because they don't live on an entire continent. And this is one thing that hit me when I went to Japan for the first time was, oh man, just like my personal bubble just like shrunk. I'm like, oh my gosh, like people are everywhere. And things, it reminded me of IKEA Småland, which is anyway, everything's small. They have their little preschool place in IKEA's. And so I joke about that because even the doorways are smaller, things are smaller, and if you're thank goodness I'm not just average height, but I've got brothers who are over 6 feet tall, and like they've got to like duck under things. And so anyway, this idea of culture shock, just letting people know like, hey, here's the tips, here's what's going to happen, it's going to be a shock to you, just normalizing it, being like, it's going to be a shock. That way people know to expect it. That helps expats really cope with this better. Okay, let's see. Oh, the other part is repatriation. Ah, that's right. Yeah. So repatriation. Okay. Well, I need to talk about on-site. Another way to help employees who are expats have a better expatriate experience is making sure that there's resources on the ground in the host country. So you're going over to Germany, or you're going over to China, or you're going over to Japan, or wherever it might be, UK, South America, I don't know, Brazil, something. You're going on an expat assignment, and having people on the ground who are there to kind of help you transition, help you. Like that is such a relief when you're traveling and on an assignment like this, where there's someone on the other side that you know is going to meet you there at the airport or wherever, train station, so that when you get there, you're like, okay, like I'm safe. I got to my hotel or apartment or house or whatever. That's important, and it's also important to have like other people who are going through the experience or sympathetic or have gone through that experience there that you can kind of work with. Point is, having people and in the host country is another way to have a better expat experience. Another thing is repatriation. So if you spend long enough in the host country, say you're on a 2 or 3 year assignment, which a lot of expatriate assignments are, by that point it's like those YouTube videos. It's like 1 day in Japan, or 1 day in Germany, or 1 week in it, or 1 month, 1 year, 10 years. Eventually, you start to become the culture that you live in, and going back home results in culture shock again, but it's culture shock for your not alma mater. What the heck? Your motherland, your homeland, your home culture. So this is another thing that companies should be aware of. That you should be aware of is the repatriation process. Is we need to basically do the same things we did, but in reverse. Like, hey, you're going to be sent back to the U.S. We need to make sure that um, we need to make sure that you're prepared for that, and that you're also going to have some culture shock going back home. Interesting thing is, and I'd love to hear from students like what your experiences are. Like a big thing when people come back to the U.S. is like everything is huge. The cups that you get at the gas station, the bottles of hand sanitizer, the everything, the people, the cars, the phones, everything's just giant. It's huge. The roads themselves are so wide, so big. That's a big thing. Sugar is another thing that's pretty common. It's like everything in the U.S. is so freaking sweet. Even things that are like shouldn't, like bread, pasta, like all kinds of pasta sauces. Everything in the U.S. seems like is sweetened to like an unnecessary level. These are common things people experience. I'm kind of trying to jog my memory of other things. This is my, I don't want to make any enemies with the class here, but like dogs, like Americans and their dogs. Like, don't get me wrong, I like dogs. Okay, had a dog growing up, but it's like a whole different level. It's just like it's a whole different level. Anyway, so that's another thing. Kind of people being responsible for their dogs. That's what I should say. Like in Japan, people are very responsible with their dogs. I feel like in the U.S., people are just sloppy with them. They're like, oh, oops, he's not on the leash. Oops. It's like, well, my dog doesn't bite. It's like, well, he didn't bite you because you feed him. Like he's anyway. I think that's what it is. People aren't as responsible. Maybe just generally. Anyway, all right. So that's that. Another thing too, though, is I think that helps people appreciate, and this is my plug for doing a study away or a study abroad. Like I really think people ought to do that while you're in college, because after college you think things. You're gonna have more money. You're gonna have more time. Like yeah, you might have more money, but like you're not gonna have more time. You're gonna have way less time. So if you can reasonably afford the time and planning and money, like I would really encourage you to think about doing a study away or study abroad. It's for most people would be a life changing. It changes your perspective, and it helps me also appreciate, deepen my appreciation and love for America, um, while also seeing its sort of pitfalls and its things that maybe we don't quite get right. So anyway, so it provides a more realistic view and also a greater appreciation for just humanity at large. That like people are people regardless of where they hail from. Okay, that's that. Blah blah blah. Fulbright, you should consider a Fulbright too. I'm on that committee, so you should think about it. Okay, so this gets to that's pretty much it in terms of career stuff. What the main things you want to know. This is kind of blending in this chapter with your stuff from Project 2. There's a whole video on Project 2, so I won't belabor this. But I really encourage you to read the HBR, the Harvard Business Review. I'm Only person in Missouri State history, by the way, to ever publish in Harvard Business Review. I'm just saying. Um, but it's kind of a big deal. So I think you got to look that up. So putting common career advice to the test. The These are the things I sought answers to that I've already told you at the very start of this, coming full circle here. Like, what's good career advice? Is some better than others? And here's what we found. And what are the common themes that people can use that lead to happier lives or careers, more lucrative or financially beneficial, and just being better in your job. Happiness in your job versus happiness in your life. Okay, technically are different things. You could be happy in your life, miserable at your job, or vice versa. Okay. Okay, so here's the nutshell, and this is like a nutshell. This article is the nutshell of the research. This is the nutshell of the nutshell. Okay, so the best advice is to be more entrepreneurially minded. So remember the very start of this lecture, I said we started with this kind of faux discussion of what career advice is there. Here's the best thing I could tell you: just be entrepreneurially minded. But let me define that. I'm not saying go and start your own businesses. It's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that either. But that's not the point. The point is, you should treat your career as if it's your own business. Like, you should take it into your own hands. If a class isn't going over the promise and peril of AI, you should be thinking about that. You should think about that. That, like, well, how do I? And I was just on a call a couple weeks ago with some of the biggest thinkers in this area, from Stanford, MIT, Harvard, Oklahoma. Where was the other person? Chicago, University of Chicago. And there, a lot of stuff was said, but like, probably the most important thing as it relates to you right now directly is, if you're using AI to automate processes, you should think twice. Because if you're using it to automate, that means you're basically automatable. Instead, you should think of using AI, and AI I'm meaning more broadly than just ChatGPT. We're talking Replit or any number of things, okay? How can it augment? So augment versus automate. So you want to be in a way that AI is augmenting. It's improving your performance versus replacing it, okay? So if you're having it write your papers, then guess what? You're going to get what you dang well deserve, which is you're setting yourself up to where you're automatable. So that's my approach now with AIs. It's like, if you're using it to automate stuff, then you're setting yourself up to be automated. You should be using it to augment yourself. So you still need to be a good writer. You should be doing the writing, using AI as a way to proofread it or to kind of banter back and forth, like, play devil's advocate. Is this a good idea, bad idea? That kind of a thing. So take your career into your own hands. First and foremost, with AI stuff is a really important consideration. You should not expect others to do it. You shouldn't even expect, like, hey, I got this diploma. That means that I'm going to have, I'm guaranteed a job. Now, some people might take the, like, I knew it. I knew I didn't need college. Not what I'm saying at all. You don't want to be dumber. You want to be smarter, because the competition isn't going to be dumber. The competition, or less educated, the competition is going to have a bachelor's degree and plus all this other stuff. So, like, you should get the bachelor's degree for a number of reasons, because I mean this is your chance to leapfrog ahead. There's no other time in your life are you going to have the ability and the access to knowledge and experts and information and your peers to network with so many people who, after they graduate, they're going to go all over the world, and you have that network of people. Now is the time for you to prepare. So be entrepreneurially minded. Okay, there is no tomorrow. You must prepare today. Okay, think boundaryless. Don't think that, well, I have an accounting degree, so I'm going to do accounting, for example. Like, okay, think bigger than that. So I have here, like, I was a psych major with 2 minors. Really, I have 1 minor, East Asian Studies. The dance, I had enough classes, or I was 1 class short of it. But anyway, but for all intents and purposes, I had a dance minor, if you look at my transcript. But I didn't pigeonhole myself. I got a marketing and sales job for a global Fortune 100 company because they wanted out of the box thinkers. They were looking at the applicant pool and realizing, oh, well, we already have all these business people, but like no one's talking about how that matters to us. And so um, I don't want you to pigeonhole yourself as, well, I'm a business major, so I can only do business stuff, or I'm a psych major, I can only do psych stuff, or whatever. Like fill in the blank with whatever your major is. Like think more boundaryless than that. Like how can the things you learn be applied elsewhere? And so I'd encourage you to do that. Network with a variety of people, which is what your project one was meant to help. Part of it was to help you network on LinkedIn or other places to like find people who are in jobs that you want, and get to know them. Okay, get to know your professors, get to know your classmates. Now is the time to do that. Okay. Other key takeaways. Not so good advice is follow your passion. Eh. There's a whole rant on this. I told you I'd get it to. The bottom line is that like it just doesn't really matter for most people. So how do I summarize this? It can matter for people. It can work really well for people. And what happens is we see those like example cases. So take Brad Pitt for example. Was senior year. The story, the legend is he dropped out of Mizzou his senior year to go to Dallas or whatever the show to go to Hollywood. But like I forget the first show that he got on. Some old show that I don't even remember. Dallas or something I think it was called. But anyway, it's like we all see that. Like, see, Brad Pitt followed his passion and worked great for him. Well, yeah, but you also didn't see the muck and the toil and the slog that he had to go through prior to his success. And another consideration is, you know what, for some people, like Brad lucked out because he's freaking gorgeous. And uh, some people just kind of luck out. Like they have an insane cognitive ability or physical ability or like they're beautiful people and that's gonna give them an edge above other people. Okay, so like for most of us, almost all of us, that's not the case. All right, so don't get stuck on the outliers, and like statistically speaking, if you fixate on the outliers, you're kind of setting yourself up for most likely failure. So for some people this does work, but for some people it works miserably for them, and so I'll give you that case as well, so that you can understand on average it's about a zero effect. For other people, they say I'm going to follow my passion, and I'm going to talk about I'm going to be the world's foremost expert on um, French 15th century French literature or something. Okay, or like I'm really interested in Matsuo Basho. He's a haiku poet of kind of medieval Japan. Um, like I could be the foremost world expert on that, but does society value it? Is there a bright outlook for it? Are there how can I exchange don't get so fixated on your passion that you kind of navel gaze, that you become so fixated and self-centered on your interests that you fail to see how that might bring value to other people and serve other people and their interests. All right, so you have to be a little more self-aware that like, well, maybe life isn't just about kind of a narcissistic pursuit of my own pleasures and passions. It's maybe I also need to consider what other people value. Okay. And so what can happen is someone spends their whole life becoming this world expert in this thing, and then it doesn't pan out for them, and they start to be resentful, and they start to say, I have 3 PhDs in this, and I only get paid $50,000 as an adjunct professor at a community college or something. And they might get bitter, and this whole pursuit of passion makes them less happy. Not only like not lucratively successful, financially successful, but they become embittered. Um, and so these are kind of both sort of extreme cases. Most people are kind of in the middle where it's like, I want to do something that I don't hate, but I don't have to like be in love with it. There's another case too where like if someone pursues the thing that they love and they start to monetize it, this is what Daniel Kahneman's research and some others. Um, and what is it? Ryan and Deci. The intrinsic motivation of the thing that you loved, once it becomes extrinsically rewarded, say with money, then it extinguishes it. It ruins it. It's like, ugh, I love doing this until it became a job. Now I hate it. All right, so that's another thing to think about. So your project two is trying to help you balance this thing. You want to find something that you like good enough. It fits good enough that you don't hate it. Because you also don't want to do something that you hate. If you're like, I just want to make a ton of money, and then you're miserable, that's not a good approach either. So in general, you want to find something that you like well enough. It may not be your single top passion, but it's also not something you hate. It's just something that you like well enough, okay, that you could do it for a living for most of your life. Okay, bad advice is this idea of job hopping. This has become kind of in vogue with Great Resignation, quiet quitting. I would just caution you on this: is that don't think that someone owes you something. This is a detrimental attitude. And whether you're like, oh, he doesn't understand this, he's a boomer. One, I'm not a boomer, millennial, but like it's just, this is data driven. It's a meta analysis. This is not a good mindset to have. Okay. Okay. Oh, I'm not going to test you on this. Man, you know what? Yeah, I want to be respectful of the time because we're at an hour. So I'm gonna. If you're interested in what this stuff is, I'm happy to talk more. But it's common career strategies post COVID that we found that some work really well, others don't, and there's four really common ones. The one that's most common is one of the worst ones. If you want to know more about that, you can reach out to me. You can email me, and happy to like talk about that. But since the lecture is already an hour, I want to keep it to that. So, all right. So, since being entrepreneurial is the best mindset you can develop for an enjoyable, successful life, I'd encourage you to think about the MSU Entrepreneurship Program. Okay, so maybe being an entrepreneurship major, it isn't about being an entrepreneur in the sense of actually having your own business. It's about these mindsets, teaching these meta mindsets of how can I think entrepreneurially? How can I have that burning fire entrepreneurially? And so, yeah. There's one thing I forgot to mention, which was, but this idea of passion, real quick, just 10 seconds. The root word of the word passion comes from pati, it's Latin, and it means to suffer, to be patient. So, like the Passion of the Christ, for instance, as you've heard, I'm sure, most of you. It's you love something so much that you're willing to suffer for it. That's a good way to think of passion. If you're thinking of passion as more kind of a hedonistic, like, I like this, it makes me feel good, that's where passion will get you kind of disappointed and maybe embittered. But if it's something that you're like, I know the gamble, I know that this is something I feel so strongly about that I'm willing to suffer for it. I'm willing, yeah, I know it may not make me the most money, but it's important enough to me that I'm willing to suffer for it. So um, that's a good way to think of passion, is with your eyes wide open as you go through it. Okay, I hope that's helpful. There's like 40 hours I could talk about this stuff. I just talk for days about this stuff, but that should give you a good, the most important things you need to know for the exam for chapter 10, and then also it should give you like a lot of background. It should help you out on your project too. And if nothing else, that should be really helpful to you in your careers. So, ribbit, ribbit, happy Halloween. Let me know if you need anything else. Rock on, be excellent to each other.